Hi and welcome back to another video of exchange sacrifices. This is the first video where it's your turn to make a choice and decide how and in which manner exactly you should sacrifice the exchange or if you should not sacrifice the exchange at all. So in this position it is black to move, and although white has opened up his king a bit, black's rook has gotten into trouble. And the question to you is basically, can we save the rook or should we sacrifice it in this or this way? And how to do it? What would be your choice? I want to give this to you to really gain some experience in sacrificing exchanges and make judgments. If it's a good exchange sacrifice, if it's a bad one, if you shouldn't do it at all, because yeah, sometimes it's a bit tricky studying exchange sacrifices, because if there's just one way to sacrifice the exchange, you usually know, yeah, that should be the solution. But since we have already seen a lot of examples and you know some patterns, you know what to watch out for, what yeah, to judge, what to look for, I want to now start with some exercise. So black to move, take your time, and we will continue with the solution. So basically, black must sacrifice the exchange because otherwise this rook will be gone. There is really no way around it, cannot be protected, and yeah, there are no squares to really save the rook. So let's maybe first start with the worst of all the exchange sacrifices, which is dropping the rook to e4. This is obviously bad because after takes, rook e1, the rook will be good and also the queens will be traded. And going into an endgame where we have no attack against the open king, there is really no justification for the exchange sacrifice. And after queen d4, pawn d4, for example, rook e7, white is just completely winning. So that's not the way to go. Let's have a look at other options we do have here. But in fact, the most obvious exchange sacrifice with rook takes c3, intending to then just start an attack against the king. It does not work well, and it would actually be a huge mistake and leaving white with some advantage. After queen takes c3, the point is that this attack with queen h4 is just leading nowhere, and thus there is no counterplay. After queen f6, white is just consolidating with either this move, rook e1, activating the rook, giving up the b2, but even stronger is just holding on to the material. And after that, white will consolidate, maybe stabilize the position. Here, try to guard the g4, free his queen, and then slowly but steadily improve, while black has not gotten anything special for his exchange sacrifice. No pawn, no strong pieces, and that's why it's not good. A better try would have been to, after queen takes c3, try to grab a pawn here, but this one single pawn would not quite be enough as white gets a good rook. And again, this threat of queen trade is again very annoying for black, as in the endgame he would always be a bit worse. And also here white's king is safe. The black's pieces are not getting into play that well, and the piece play is just quite important here. White is a bit better, not yet winning, but yeah, black is no better, of course, and white has no issues. For example, after king g2, the queen cannot grab this pawn, as the queen will drop after rook e8 check, and if bishop takes a4, white is having a good rook. And as a rule of thumb, if the rook is good, the exchange sacrifice is usually not working that well, even though black might have a little counterplay here with something like b5. White is in the driver's seat, but when we have a closer look at the starting position, we might realize there is another option to sacrifice an exchange. And this is maybe hard to spot in the first place, because it involves a temporary rook sacrifice even. So the move I'm talking about is rook takes h3, and white absolutely needs to take this rook, as queen h4, followed by a strong attack, would follow if the rook would stay alive. So bishop h3 is forced, and after queen h4, we are regaining this bishop. And then we already gained a pawn, the king is open, we have some attack going, and we're just an exchange down for a pawn. So this can be even quite dangerous for white. For example, the natural king g2 trying to hold on to the bishop for a while does backfire, as the king is a bit caged in here, and we will win the bishop anyway, as it's so cornered here. And we get a huge attack, close to winning position after bishop g4, queen takes. Queen h3, the king is so open, and also the knight comes in very nicely. The rook is still passive, and white is in huge trouble. Also the f4 pawn, the c4 pawn, they are all weak, and the black pieces are just floating towards the attack. So this is not only objectively better, this is also extremely dangerous for white if he does not manage to really defend in the most accurate way. So better for white is to play king to g1, and after queen takes h3, I think it's already a point where I would try to make a judgment of the position. I would probably say black is doing quite well if white has no forced way to trade the queen. So that is something I would check here. But if that's not going to happen, black has this, yeah, good piece play because he will soon get access to the f5 square. It's just very hard to imagine that white will keep the f5 square locked. And thus he has very good piece play, one pawn and an open king, which should be enough compensation for the sacrifice exchange. In fact, black is a little better here. One sample line could go queen g2, queen e3 check, queen f2, queen d3. And again, white needs to be very precise. For example, f5. It's not such an easy move to make. And here, white might keep the balance after queen c4, takes, takes, takes. But black is in no danger. He already has two pawns, while the white king is open. Often the game could end in some perpetual checks, for example, after rook e1, b5, takes, takes. White, yeah, would be well advised to try to get a queen's off, but black will never do that, but he could harass the white king. Also, yeah, if white is too ambitious here, the black pawns would set into motion and black would even get a winning position very quickly. So this exchange sacrifice with rook takes h3 is very strong because it opens up the king more. We get an ongoing attack. The white rook will stay more passive, and we will also, in comparison to this queen takes c3 line, be less likely to trade the queens as the white queen does not enter the defense that quickly, and it takes much longer and much more effort to offer queen trades, and in the meantime we get a lot of counterplay. So this exchange sacrifice is not about winning, but it's about making a practical decision which sacrifice is good, what is the best chance, where to get counterplay, how to judge positions which are not clear to judge. And I hope I could give you some more insights about this, and you can apply such difficult exchange sacrifices into your own game. If you like my videos, I would really appreciate if you like and subscribe, write some comments. That really helps the algorithm suggest my videos more, and that helps you to get more videos. So thanks for that, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.